So good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee-Ji-yoon in Seoul. Before we get started, let's first get a glimpse of today's highlights. The country's output levels for all sectors combined dropped last month on the back of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 recall and the 3-week-long strike by unionized cargo truck drivers. The Korean government announces additional measures to support employment for young people and women as the youth jobless rate hits record levels. These stories and more coming right up. And we start off with a look at the markets. Korean shares ended higher on Wednesday as gains in market heavyweights in the tech sector boosted the broader market. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi rose a little over 5 points to finish at 1983.48. While the tech-heavy Kosdaq also edged up by 0.04 points to end at 596.11. Meanwhile, the Korean won ended at 1,169.11 against the U.S. dollar. Oil prices stumbled almost 4% on Tuesday as doubts grew over an OPEC agreement on production cuts at a meeting scheduled for Wednesday in Vienna. A deal is looking increasingly unlikely as Iran and Iraq, OPEC's second and third largest producers, are at loggerheads with Saudi Arabia after they refused to curtail output a day ahead of the meeting. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slumped to slightly over $45 a barrel, while Brent futures plunged by almost $2, trading at about $46 a barrel. Fresh data on production has been released this Wednesday. Statistics Korea says the country's output across all sectors fell in the month of October, logging a drop of 2 straight months. For more on what this could mean for the overall economy, our Shin Se-min is live in the studio with us. Hello, Se-min.
Hi, Ji.
All right, so walk us through some of the key points from today's report.
Sure. Output levels for all sectors combined fell 0.4% in the month of October compared to the previous month and 2% gain on year. Now, some of the main reasons behind this monthly fall were the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 recall and the longest unionized cargo truck driver strike that lasted for 3 weeks. Industrial production in mining, manufacturing, and energy dropped 1.7% compared to the month before, while service sector output edged down 0.2%. But on a brighter note, private consumption jumped over 5%, and this comes despite the newly implemented anti-graft law and amid the ongoing political Choi Soon-sil scandal. The agency attributes the large jump to Korea Sale Festa, a government-initiated sales event. Although it was a short-term measure, it appears to have produced clear results when it comes to boosting consumption.
Now, what's interesting is that from October figures, we're seeing a bit of change in the construction sector.
You're right on point. The production in the construction sector fell 0.8% in October compared to the figure tallied in September.
Okay.
Now, although on year it did post a 17% rise. Now, but the sector is considered one of the most important backbones of Korea's economic growth. Korea Development Institute says that the 3% economic expansion seen in Korea's economy in the first 6 months of this year, housing construction contributed to 1 percentage point to the entire growth. But why the fall?
With the government vowing to put a lid on the country's growing household debt, the country's real estate market is also feeling the change, along with the construction sector. This means Korea may lose one of its major economic growth drivers, which has been propping up growth amid the slump on the export and consumption front.
In other words, more bad news for the Korean economy looking ahead, as a weakening construction sector means that Asia's fourth largest economy will lose more ground for growth.
All right, so what do these figures mean for the Korean economy when looking at things on broader perspective?
Well, to put things into in a more broader context, an expert I talked to wanted to zoom in on the on-year figure rather than on month when talking about the general growth. Now, he said a 2% increase in output across all sectors compared to October last year is not that all impressive.
The output figures follow the general trend of GDP growth. If overall output grew by 2% on year in October, that's lower than the country's economic expansion. That suggests that in the fourth quarter, GDP growth could experience a slight drop.
Looking ahead, economic conditions for both at home and abroad seem unfavorable for local businesses as the new U.S. administration could potentially weigh down Korea's exports even more. And this while Korea has its own domestic uncertainties like the recent political scandal involving the presidential office, which could further deter foreign investment, as well as the burden of household debt that continues to grow below 1.3 quadrillion. That continues to grow beyond, that is 1.3 quadrillion won or 1.1 trillion US dollars as of the end of third quarter.
And now speaking of growth outlook, just yesterday we saw the OECD revise down Korea's growth projections for next year to the 2% range. So should we expect slowing expansion in the coming months?
That's right. A lot of forecasts seems to be pointing to that direction as of now. For one, as you said, the OECD put next year's growth outlook for Korea at 2.6% from its original 3% growth, while it hiked its projection for the world economy to 3.3%. Local economic research centers have also projected that Korea's growth will stay in the low 2% range, with LG Economic Research Institute and Korea Economic Research Institute projecting 2.2%. Even with the country's central bank revised down its outlook figure to 2.8% from the original 2.9%. And as of now, the only Korean government is optimistic that the economy will grow 3% next year.
And I imagine that we'll see further adjustments from other institutions down the line.
Potentially.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure.
The Korean government is looking to lower the country's youth jobless rate by filling empty spots at small and medium-sized companies. Now, it's also encouraging companies to offer more incentives to get women back into the job market after giving birth. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
The government is vowed to boost measures aimed at supporting youth employment. In an economy-related ministers' meeting on Wednesday, Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho said the government will expand on measures that complement policies unveiled in April aimed at supporting employment for young people and women. Among the measures, if young job seekers work at a small or medium-sized company for 2 years after an internship there and save 3 million won or roughly $2,600 US, the government and the firm will provide a combined bonus of over $7,700 as an incentive. The system will be expanded to cover 5 times as many people as initially announced.
We will foster this program as one of our top priorities to get young people to work at SMEs and build up their assets. We'll expand the number of young job seekers that can enroll for the program to 50,000.
The program aims to reduce the youth unemployment rate by encouraging young people to take jobs at SMEs. The youth jobless rate stood at 8.5% in October, the highest for that month in 17 years. In regards to boosting female employment, the government will include maternity leave when assessing performance for public institutions. Those that offer greater maternity protection to their female workers will be given incentives. Moving to the broader economy, the top economic policy makers cited a potential U.S. rate hike and uncertainties regarding the incoming Trump administration, as well as sliding local investment and spending in the wake of a political scandal as risks going forward. Yu said the government will implement fiscal measures, including the budget supplement, without delay in order to minimize risks in the job market and on other economic fronts. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
Now back at the National Assembly, the deadline to pass next year's state budget is now 2 days away. And while it's on track to be the biggest budget to date, the current Choi Soon-sil scandal roiling the nation is making it challenging to pass the bill on time. Our Eunice Kim tells us about the sticking points.
Leaders of the country's top 3 political parties this morning committed to passing next year's budget bill by Friday. But the National Assembly has been abuzz hearing testimony after testimony on the widening probe involving the president and her confidant Choi Soon-sil, as well as the many government branches and private companies it touches. As a result, it's unclear whether the 2017 budget, set to be the country's largest ever, with spending earmarked for job creation and support for export firms, SMEs, and regional enterprises, will be able to pass. There are two major sticking points with the budget. First is corporate taxes. Emboldened by a weakened presidential office and ruling party, the opposition bloc has been pushing for a corporate tax hike in the name of chaebol reform and economic democratization. From the current 22%, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea wants to raise corporate taxes back to 25%, as it was before the previous Lee Myung-bak administration slashed it. The People's Party wants to lift it up to 24% with a lower tax base. Vehemently against the move, the ruling Saenuri Party and the presidential office say raising the corporate tax rate, especially at a time when the U.S. president-elect is promising to slash corporate taxes, would worsen Korea's already faltering competitiveness, leading to shrinking jobs and tax revenue. Number two is Nuri childcare. Opposition parties are calling for the government to take on the whole cost of the Nuri childcare program, which offers free childcare for parents of children between 3 and 5 years of age. But the ruling party has said tying taxes to the Nuri program is not right, in part as the welfare program is estimated to cost nearly $1.7 billion.
As for the Nuri program, we'll arrive at a rational solution after plenty of discussion among related parties.
There's cautious hope that a compromise could be reached among political leaders. If the ruling Saenuri Party agrees to take on the cost of Nuri childcare, the opposition parties may be willing to step back on corporate taxes, on the condition the income taxes for the wealthiest are raised to help fund the many expenditures expected next year. Experts caution if the budget bill is not concluded within the week, it stands to become lost within the coming political uncertainties, which means bigger dangers could still be ahead. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
The number of birds culled by the government will reach 3 million in the days to come as it attempts to curb an outbreak of bird flu that has hit a number of farms across the nation. The Ministry of Agriculture said it has confirmed 17 cases of the highly pathogenic H5N6 virus, mostly around the western coastal areas where large wintering sites for migratory birds are located. It says that as of the end of Tuesday, roughly 2.1 million chicken and ducks have been culled, with about 870,000 more to go to stop the spread of the animal disease. No cases of human infections have been reported yet after the government examined some 1,500 people working at poultry facilities. The global freight crisis sparked by Hanjin Shipping's financial problems has eased as other shipping lines took the Korean company's undelivered cargo. Since it filed for court receivership in August, Hanjin Shipping has seen its global market share slump. And data from the Busan Port Authority shows that its share of the Asia to North America route in October had dropped to the 1% range from 7.8% from the same month last year. From North America to Asia, it tumbled even farther, going from 8% in October 2015 to 0.01% a year later. Foreign shipping lines, including Denmark's Maersk and Switzerland's MSC, have picked up the slack, each expanding their market share. And Hanjin has been forced to sell its assets in an effort to survive an industry-wide slump and cash shortage. More names have been added to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet. Elaine Chao has been nominated as Trump's transportation secretary. If confirmed, she will become the second woman to be named to a cabinet position under Trump and the first Asian American. Chao served as Secretary of Labor for several years under President George W. Bush and is married to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Also on Tuesday, President-elect Trump named Tom Price as Health Secretary. The representative from Georgia has been a vocal critic of President Obama's signature healthcare reforms known as Obamacare. Price will be tasked with dismantling the law and introducing Trump's plans for more affordable and accessible health care. While Trump's cabinet is starting to take shape, he still has to fill the posts of State, Defense, and Treasury. And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.